We call the installment Martial Law, and this radio program is intended to be for informational purposes only. The information does not constitute legal advice. The law is constantly changing. The information may not be complete or correct depending on the date and your particular legal problem. Each legal problem depends on its individual facts, and different jurisdictions have different laws and regulations. Because of these differences, you should not act or rely on any information in this segment without seeking the advice of a competent attorney licensed to practice law in your jurisdiction for your particular problem. A guy like Marshall Chriswell, who's on the line with us this morning. Good morning.
Good morning.
Good to have you back with us. Hey, last week we were talking about real estate, and real estate can be a really, really technical thing, and we understand that. In fact, we had the survey that came out last week talking about the legal terms that people don't understand. And some of those terms are certainly, it's understandable that we don't understand them. But simple basic terms like mortgage, people don't understand what mortgage is, or equity, and all of these different things. It can be, let's put it this way, it can be quite complicated. Today we want to tackle a couple of different things, and these are legal terms that we might relate to real estate. And one of those legal terms that I'd like you to explain today is the restrictive covenants. What are they, and how can they affect us when we are either purchasing or selling a property?
Well, thank you, Todd. You're absolutely right about the language of the law and how opaque it is, how difficult it is for folks that don't work in it every day to understand even the terminology and then the meaning of those. I know when I went to law school, it was like learning a foreign language. Mm-hmm. So yeah, that's perfectly understandable that people wouldn't know what those terms are, and that's why you get a lawyer to break it down for you and make it simple. The term restrictive covenants. So restrictive covenants are related to real estate, and they are specific restrictions that are placed in the deed or in perhaps a separate agreement or document that's of record in the land records, and they say all the things that you are not allowed to do with your property. Usually restrictive covenants come into play when you had an owner that maybe subdivided and developed an area for whether residential or commercial use, and placed restrictive covenants in all the deeds whenever he deeded them out to the new owners, so that you have a uniform plan. So most of the time when you see a subdivision, whether it's a small one with a few lots or a larger subdivision like we have around town here, there are restrictive covenants in the deeds, and it's interesting because sometimes somebody will decide they're going to buy a piece of property. They'll go to the courthouse and they'll look at the prior deed. They'll look, at the deed that was granted to the seller of this property whenever they bought it, and they won't see any restrictive covenants or other things in there. They're not always in that deed. You have to go back 20, 30, 50, 60 years to find them. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So those being put in place, I think one of the things that we need to understand about that is that that covenant would be something that you agreed to as the purchaser of the property. So you can't say you're surprised afterwards, correct?
That's right. The covenants, they run with the land, so they bind all successive owners of the property. And right, you're bound by them whether you actually read them or not. Why? And that's one of the reasons it's so important to have an attorney do a title search whenever you're purchasing property. And some examples of restrictive covenants: they can restrict the way you use the property. So maybe you're living in an area. A lot of areas around here don't have zoning. Right, here in the borough we do, but in White Township and other townships in Indiana County, they don't have zoning. But a restrictive covenant can still say, nope, you can't use this property for a commercial purpose, or you can't put a multi-unit residential structure on this property, and that's binding. There can be setbacks. They could say, okay, this covenant says that you can't build any structures within 50 feet of the public road and within 20 feet of a boundary line. Mm-hmm. that, and if you don't read that, if you don't know that, I had a client that ran into this once. They had purchased a property, didn't read or didn't understand the restrictive covenants, built a very large, nice garage, beautiful new garage on their property, but they had a 50-foot setback from the road that ran by the house, and they built it. It was within the 50 feet, and they turned around a few years later. They were going to sell the house and their big, beautiful garage, and the seller came back and said, "I'm not going to buy it unless you can fix this, because you've violated the restrictive covenant, and at any time, any of the other members of this, any of the other neighbors that are, that benefit from these covenants can come back and enforce them and make me tear down or move that garage." So we had to go and get approval from all the other neighbors within the plan to essentially approve the existence of this garage.
Well, there's another term then that comes into play here, and not specifically with restrictive covenant, but can be a part of it, and that is the term easement.
Yeah, yep. And easements are, again, these are placed on the record either in the deed or in a separate easement agreement. Generally, they're easements for access, also known as a right-of-way, where a neighbor has the ability to cross your property. Maybe it's a shared driveway. Maybe there is a landlocked parcel behind your property where and it can be for residential or commercial purposes. I know, I've had clients that buy a nice little lot and a home, and they didn't realize, there's a company that has the right to take timber out from this 80-acre parcel tract behind our land, and they can cross our property to do it, and so that ends up being a real pain. So there are easements for access. There are easements for utilities. So, and that's very common, right? Most parcels are going to have some utility easements so that you can get the electric or the sewage lines or the water lines to the structures on the property. But there can be private utility rights as well. You certainly want to know if you're, you have a well or a spring on the property that your neighbor has the right to draw from as well. Or natural gas, same thing. Is there a well on the property that a neighbor has the right to use, and also to come on and maintain or improve those utilities? You want to know all that.
Yeah, absolutely. Are these things, restrictive covenants, easements, and all of those different things that we're talking about this morning, are they generally between private sellers and buyers of property, or can governments be involved in it as well?
Governments can certainly be involved. I recently did a closing on a home that was located near a public school, and the public school had some easements for access, an easement in the front of the property for buses to turn around if they needed to. So you had a public entity there in the school that had some rights to the land that this house is situated on. You certainly have municipal authorities, water and sewage authorities that come in and, okay, we're going to put in public water and public sewer, but we're going to get easements all along down the road from every property owner so that we can put these lines in, and so those can be there. So yeah, it could be public entities, other private homeowners, commercial entities, you name it.
And of course, when you talk about projects such as that, mandatory tap-ins are things that have been contested and hotly contested in some communities. People who have really nice working wells, and all of a sudden they're being forced to tap into public water. And the courts have pretty much taken care of those objections, and so that becomes a part of what you must understand when you enter into any real estate deal as well. And I think what it's really pointing out to us is that this is not real estate is not a do-it-yourself type of project, is it?
It really isn't. As much as people try, and we're living in a time when people with the internet, with all the information that's available, that there are lots of things that you can try yourself. But in most cases, legal work isn't one of them, particularly when it's related to real estate, because it's a complex. The issues are complex, and as we kind of alluded to at the top of the segment, you just, as a layperson that isn't in it every day, you don't understand the language, you don't understand the implications, and as I always like to say, you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah, that's absolutely true. When you incorporate the concept of an HOA into all of this as well,
Sure.
that really can be something that engenders some really harsh feelings, but it is what it is, and you've signed on to it when you purchased that property.
That's right, and I see all sorts of disputes regarding HOA and condominium associations, and that's right, and that's why you have to. I think what I see a lot is people, maybe even they did find out about the covenants and the HOA restrictions, and they glanced at them and thought, but everybody there seems so nice, and it's not going to be a big deal if we have small violations of these, it's going to be pretty laid back. You have to understand that these legal requirements can be enforced very, very strictly.
Absolutely.
And so you've got to be aware of it.
All that being the case, someone needs to get these all unentangled. They should contact you. How do they do that?
You can call me at 724-465-5826. Come up to the R&P Cole Building, 655 Church Street in Indiana, or go online to www.westernpalawyer.com.
Marshall, thank you so much. Have a great day.
Thanks. You too. See ya.
It is the voice of Indiana County, WCCS. WCCS.